Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Right on time.
So glad that you are joining us for the Family Matters podcast. Guys, so glad you guys are here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are honored. Are we your first
Yes.
official guests?
The first official.
Or are we going to be reoccurring?
Oh, no, it's going to be a recurring thing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is like a one time. I guess we'll see after this how this goes.
Yes,
Maybe
I know.
they'll have me back or us back. Maybe they won't. I don't know.
Well, I guess it's going to depend on how many likes we get, how many subscribers we start getting off of the first episode.
My future depends on all of our listeners
know.
and viewers. So please make us proud. We want to come back.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So the podcast is going to be called Family Matters. And let me introduce everybody at the couch that we have here today. First of all, my beautiful wife, Roxana. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Next to me, we have Pastor David.
Oh, hi. Hello, everyone. If you don't know me, my name's David. I'm one of the pastors here. And to my left is my beautiful wife.
Adriana. Yes. Hi.
So Family Matters, as you can tell, it's got a double understanding of it. Family Matters means that family is important.
Sure.
It's definitely going to be very, very important. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about throughout the course of the podcast. The other thing is we're going to be talking about family matters, things that affect the family.
Yeah.
You know, whether it is part of the marriage covenant, whether it's about kids, and everything in between. So super excited about it. So glad that y'all are joining us for the very first episode. Make sure you click on the subscribe button and make sure you get connected to everything about the Family Matters podcast. So first and foremost, how did you guys meet?
Ooh, do you want to go? Or
We have two different versions on this, but
Okay, I think we can reconcile with the best one in
I know.
post-production.
yes.
It's a loaded question. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a loaded question.
Yeah. So we ultimately met here serving in youth ministry. I had been serving, you were serving for a while.
Yeah, I think at that point, I had so I took like a hiatus from serving. I had some stuff going on in life, and I recently started serving again. So there was, in youth at least, so there was new faces. One of them being this beautiful one next to me.
Yes. So I volunteered in youth ministry, and I think that's where I met you, Marco.
Exactly.
And yeah, it had been a few years. Then I did the internship for 2 years. They couldn't get rid of me, and I just loved it. 4 semesters.
Yeah,
did
crazy.
the holiday events and the whole thing, and it was a lot of fun. And then somewhere in between there, you came back, right,
Yeah,
to volunteer in youth ministry.
I came into her life.
And then he said I was mean to him.
She was.
You know, I think that we have a lot in common in that respect.
But I didn't see it. I think I was just so kind of like focused, and I had just recently come out of a breakup. So I was also very guarded. So I feel like maybe that was off-putting for you.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I just to give you context to or at least to our listeners, because at the time my brother was a youth pastor before me, and he was there. I was serving underneath him,
As was I.
We both were, and Adri, right? So,
Oh, by the way, Pastor Alex, hi.
yeah, if you're watching, listening,
Make sure you subscribe, please.
I know.
better. So anyway, we were all, the three of us really we're all serving underneath my brother. You were as consistent as can be. You were there the whole time, even when I left. She was newer, so when I came in, she was one of the new faces I saw. Before I had left, I had, I guess, some leadership position there within the ministry, or I was one of the. Well, you remember, I was one of the main leaders there. When I came back, I sort of started all over, which I wanted. Like my brother and I had talked, and we're like, okay, we're gonna start from ground zero. But that didn't exactly happen. I feel like I kind of had like some privileges. Like they kind of just put me back in roles that I was functioning in before, and I felt like some of them who earned it, like my
Well,
wife.
no, I swooped in and I was like trying to lead you.
Yeah, so she.
Just
This
kidding.
funny story. My first day back, she was doing my orientation, which I already knew because I already.
But then I knew he was, the pastor's brother. So I'm like, okay, like, I feel like the roles should be reversed, right? Like, he should be training me. Like, it just felt
like
weird.
She felt like some type of way, like, oh, here comes the pastor's brother. He can do whatever he wants.
Maybe that's why she was mean to you.
That's what I was alluding to. It's like, see, someone caught on.
I was serious. I was like, man, I gotta like really like.
No,
you
I'm
know.
just, but I'm joking. Honestly, there were times where I did think I wouldn't say mean, but I just didn't think she liked me. Like, I just thought maybe like I annoyed her, or maybe I was just kind of like, maybe she thought I was like privileged because of who my brother was. But little did I know that she liked me. And yeah.
Well, not exactly. I just have to be honest because
Wow.
I didn't see him that way. Like and then I think at the time what I was hearing was that he was in another relationship, and
That's
so
a
I
whole other
think
thing.
that really
Which wasn't
I'm
true.
not gonna
It's clear the R wasn't.
have hard eyes for a guy who's in a serious relationship. So I think my mind was just elsewhere. I think at the
Yeah.
given time, but then we somehow got connected through mutual friends and
Right.
hanging out in youth
The
ministry.
same circle of friends and stuff.
Then we rode bikes downtown.
That was like the
and
changing
then,
point, right?
Yeah.
I think it was at the time
We
where
hung out in groups and
so if you guys don't know, we didn't always have bikes downtown that you could rent. So when we like I guess first met, not even when we were dating, when we first met, that was like a very new thing to El Paso.
So you guys were like the trendsetters.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think maybe we're just following the trend because everyone was doing it. We're like, let's go downtown. It's gonna be cool. So
yeah.
a big
it
old
was
group of
like
us from youth went. Again, we were in the same circle of friends. She was there. I liked her, but no one knew I liked her. Not even my closest friends knew I liked her. Because like she said, I was in a relationship prior, but I'd already been out of it for a little bit. So I think they were under the understanding, I guess I should say, that I still had like feelings for my ex and stuff. So they had no clue, right? And that's what they would tell her, like, oh yeah, he's still mourning, or he's still healing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like, I
He's
was
in the
good at that
grieving
point.
period.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, that period was long gone at that point. But yeah, I remember specifically, we were all downtown. My wife, I love her, but she's not the most athletic person. She was.
What if I was just nervous?
Maybe that was it. Maybe she was nervous, but she was.
You were making her
I was
nervous.
I was
That's
struggling
what it was.
to ride the bike.
She was
And
at
he
the
felt
back
bad
of the
for
pack.
me, and
so
then he
I hung back a
trailed
little bit.
behind. Yeah, and then I think that's where.
But it was
we-
cool though, because that's because she was straggling behind. Not strag. Is that the word? Straggling behind.
Yeah.
Whatever the word is, because she was trailing back a little bit, and I stayed with her. We were able to have like one-on-one conversation, which I think to that point we never really had. Just her and I, like
Yeah, we
without
were
a
getting
group of
to know
people.
each other as friends. Like we had only just maybe spoke a few times.
Yeah.
In youth ministry.
Yeah, like directly. Yeah, but we got to know each other, and it was one thing that jumped off that I noticed right off the bat, I should say, about her was that she was very open about her life in general and different things that she had experienced, even her family, and to me that was like very like bizarre because I'm not like that. Well, I wasn't at the time, at least. I was very very closed off, very what would you say, kind of
Like really reserved.
there you go,
I
reserved
think.
is the word.
Yeah, he was like more open with people he was familiar with.
Yeah,
right?
and
Like,
she was just
rightfully
like an
so.
open book, like telling me everything, and I'm like, oh dang, like this is
Now
different.
looking back, I'm like, should I?
No, I mean it worked because for me, it I found attractive, right, and I guess almost, comforting in a sense that she was trusting me with that kind of information,
Yeah.
and again, we were acquaintances, but we weren't like super close. So the fact that she barely knew me, like for real. Like if you really think about it, she barely knew me and she was willing to share these things. That for me was like, oh, like I really appreciated that. So I always appreciate when people share like intimate things or very personal things or things that they wouldn't share with other people. I'll keep that, right? So the fact that she did that, I was like, cool, like she trusts me, and that meant a great deal to me, right? So I think that was part of the reason. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I think that was part of the reason.
I didn't think you've ever told me
Yeah,
that.
that was part of the reason I was attracted to her was her openness and her ability to trust me like right off the bat. Right? I don't know who told me once. I don't know if it was Pastor Charles or Pastor Cruz, but somebody on staff I heard say that that trust is given, but mistrust is actually what's earned. Right. So to me, in that moment, that was like a perfect example of that. That she wasn't like giving me trust. Like she had given it to me completely. I didn't have to earn it. And at that point, it was like, okay, it's on me if I screw it up at this point, right? Like if I screw up the trust that she's already given to me, if that makes sense. So to me, it was a big deal. I'm just trying to like paint a picture of like the weight of what she did in that moment. To her, it was maybe like,
Yeah.
maybe it didn't seem like a big deal, but to me,
Yeah.
it was a really big deal, right? Like,
I think it's important too because if I had known, like, obviously it would turn into something serious, I think I wouldn't have been able to be my authentic self, you know? Because I feel like I'm like that with everybody, you know? I'm like, hey, like, let's talk, you know? Let's dig deeper, you know? Let's not have a shallow conversation. Like, hey, how are you? Like, how are you, right? Like, I like those details. I like hearing about your life, your testimony. And so I feel like it was a different approach for me. Like I had a little crush on him, but for me it was like,
a little bit.
I mean, well, at the
No, I'm just
time,
kidding.
right? It developed. But I was able to like, you know, be my genuine self and like we were able to connect as friends. And I really feel like that was a solid foundation for us because it wasn't like super quick, like, hey, I like you, let's go on dates. It was like, let's hang out in groups, let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
And I think,
Although I did tell her pretty early on, like,
That you had a crush on her?
I was like pretty direct about it.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I like you. I don't know. If you're like, I was like, I don't know if you feel the same. And then she's like, yeah, I like you too. And I was like, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
at least we know.
This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But I think it was a few months. It
Yeah.
was a few months of like just hanging out in group settings, you know, getting to know each other. And I really feel like that helped us build, you know, a good
Yeah, like nice
foundation. Yeah, before we actually.
We were friends before we were lovers.
Way before.
Yeah, way
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, the lovers part didn't come till after
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys
yeah,
got married.
way after.
2 years later. So, yeah, 'cause-
Fantastic.
Yeah.
right? We got
Yeah.
we dated for 2 years and then we got married.
And I think looking back to like because of both of our past situations, we were kind of like in a space of not really like looking to date. You know how when it just can be so bad where you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if I could do this again. I feel like especially me, I was in that, you know, I was healed, but I wasn't like, you know, actively pursuing relationships. And actually, like that week that we met, I was fasting. And I was just, you know, fasting about other things, but also like, okay, like help me see like the progress or, you know what I mean? Like help me move forward because I feel like there was still a little bit of residue. And I think like the 6th day, I fasted for a week. I met him. And then I was like, oh my gosh.
that would make sense because I would have
weird.
shown up on a Sunday.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
would've
It
been
was
the-
on a Sunday and we
Wow,
did
that's
baptisms.
crazy. I didn't know that. I just this is
yeah.
the first time I ever hear that.
Really? I've never shared
Pretty
Well,
that.
there you go. All the
So-
things are coming out on,
I know, full circle.
on this
I
podcast.
know.
Wow.
Yeah. so
Family
I
matters.
think, yeah, for me, that was like, like a, okay, you know, and not saying that, oh my God, he's the one, right? Like jumping to extremes, but I really feel like that's truly where like I allowed the Lord to heal my heart and move forward. And so when it did, the time was right, you know, that I wouldn't miss it or that I could see clearly. So, yeah, I think it was just like little details.
Yeah,
but
but in a nutshell, we
Yeah.
met here at church in youth.
That's a really good place to start.
yeah, honestly. And you guys?
Well, that's Well, we've been married for 25 years. This year was our 25th anniversary.
Amazing.
Let's go.
Been together now almost 29 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So we actually met at community college. And we both have different stories, much like yourselves. I have my side of the story and she has hers, but I guess we're going to hear both sides
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead and start with your side.
We met in summer of '94. I graduated in, I'm not going to say, but it was straight out of high school. And I played sports. I played sports during high school. And so I needed to take an elective. And so I decided to take a volleyball class. So I was good in sports. I was a good volleyball player. And so was he. The only thing was that they always chose him to be the captain. And he never wanted to choose me. I was always on the opposite side of, I was always the opponent.
Yeah.
And he always chose, the tallest girls. And he never chose me. And all of a sudden, once, I'm walking to my class.
Uh-huh.
And he's sitting in the hallway. And all of a sudden, he's following me. I sit down in my history class right in the back. And he sits right next to me. And I don't remember if that day you invited me to lunch or it was some other day. But the instructor walks in and everything, and he's still sitting there. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I was kind of embarrassed, because he didn't belong in that class.
Yeah.
And
I think I knew all the answers to the questions that the professor was asking.
I don't remember if it was that day, that we actually, we went to lunch.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember what the name of the restaurant was?
Genghis Khan.
It might be a little bit before you guys.
I'm like,
It was like a Chinese restaurant?
It was a Szechuan restaurant right on the corner of Yarborough and I'd say Vista del Sol.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
It's right behind. It was right behind the what is now Whataburger. By the way, Whataburger, thank you.
Shameless plug. Just kidding.
Absolutely.
A Whataburger.
And so after that, we just became friends. I was in a relationship, so was he. But we were just friends. But obviously they say, once you start hanging out with somebody, you start picking up feelings. And that's
Right.
exactly what happened, because we were friends for a whole year. And then after the years when we actually started dating. So I don't know if that's your...
That's
Well,
my
yeah,
version
he,
of the
if
story.
he never picked you, and then all of a
I
sudden
know,
you're
I
like,
know, and
okay.
now he didn't want me at first, and then...
It's because he didn't want to seem too eager. I know what he's doing.
I was playing hard to get.
There
Is
you
what I
go.
was.
Oh, that's what it was.
Part of it was that one of the things that she told me and continues to this day of that particular me was that I was very arrogant. But I have a difference of opinion. I call that a lot of confidence.
Very competent.
I definitely played volleyball, played in league play, both settered, digger, and spiker. So, I was very confident in my skills at the time. And so, being a sore loser, I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
And so, I also wanted to make sure that even though it was an elective, I always made sure that we always won.
So not picking her was a business decision.
It was absolutely
nothing personal.
nothing personal.
But I was a good player.
She was a good player,
We could have been a better
Team.
team.
but we are an
Well, we
amazing
were,
team
and
now.
Right now we are.
We're an amazing team now, and so part of it was when I did follow her, I was actually waiting in one of the hallways, one of the chairs similar to this, and I was just waiting, and she was wearing a denim outfit, a long dress that went down to her ankles, and part of that was just I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was already in one. She was in one too, and I don't know why I decided to just hang out. And I was in the hallway. I wasn't necessarily waiting for her. I was waiting for a class, but not necessarily for her. And I saw her as like, I know she's in my volleyball class, so I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And then she was walking into her class. I followed her in and literally sat right next to her, opposite of this. And we just started to talk. And I think it was the second or third time that we had talked. I was like, "Hey, do you want to go get something to eat?" And part of that was actually, we kind of, sorry, mom and dads, we ditched class. And we decided to go eat at Genghis Khan. I had a big plate. She had a salad. She made sure that she had a salad on the first one.
No, it was just the soup.
Was it the soup? I thought it was
Yes.
salad.
No, the soup.
So she had soup. It was the egg drop.
No, I don't like egg drop.
Oh, well, there you go.
Mine was the spicy one.
Oh, the hot and sour?
Yes, the hot and sour.
Okay.
But he says that he thought that I had a sister. So he actually followed me for my sister. It wasn't even for me.
Wow, that's a big part that you left out. That's not even like a small thing.
I have a tendency to forgive and forget, and I forgot about that. So,
Oh my gosh.
and that was just one of those things where, we really hit it off. We hit it off, and we just had a blast. Our uncle on her side, one of the things that he said that attracted her to me was my vehicle at the time. I had a 1991 Toyota 4x4, extra cab with the cabin in the back, the camper, and it was a really nice truck.
It was a very nice truck.
I miss it. So if you're out there, 1991 Toyota 4x4, it's a deluxe, by the way. Kind of wish I had it back though.
It's never too late.
Eventually, we'll find one. I've been looking. We'll eventually find one. And then from that point forward, we were just hanging out. I eventually broke up with the girl that I was dating. She broke up with the young man that she was dating, and we still hung out with each other. We would go to the movies. We would hang out with her friends, one of my friends as well. But we weren't dating. We were just hanging out.
Yeah.
And so that, like you guys, that was one of the foundations of our friendship. It's just hanging out together.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was no agenda at the time. We just enjoyed each other's company. And a friend of ours, a long time ago, had said, the more time you spend with anyone, the more likely it is that you will fall in love with them. And that was pretty true. One of the things that I find humorous is that we were adamant, and it was true, that we were just friends. We weren't dating whatsoever. We weren't holding hands, nothing. But her dad is like, yeah, right. You guys are friends. But we are.
He never believed us that we were just friends.
Yeah.
But we were.
But that was one of the fun things about our relationship. She lived in Fabens, and I lived in El Paso. At the time, I think I was working at Sam's.
Really? I thought both of you had lived in
Yeah.
Fabens.
No, she lived in Fabens, and then I lived in El Paso.
Wow.
And so where we met at community college at Valle Verde, when I would get off of work, I'd go all the way to Fabens. It was probably like 8:30, 9 o'clock when I'd get out of work, drive all the way to Fabens, and then hang out for a little while, and then head home probably about 11 or so. And there was like one of the times that I actually fell asleep on her couch because I was just exhausted. And then I took a power nap, and then I went home.
Gotta keep it PG. Just kidding.
Oh, absolutely. Her mom and her dad were there, of course, and then her sisters were there. So yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy. I always assumed that you were both from Fabens, and that maybe you met there, but you met in college. Really, so community college really is the best place to start.
That is absolutely.
Look at that. You guys met there. That's
It
wild.
is the best place to start.
That's crazy.
I think what's really cool about your story is that both of you guys felt the same way, because it's usually like
One or the
if,
other.
yeah, if you have friends of the opposite sex, you know, and both of you are single, like it's cool, right? Like, quote unquote, okay for you guys to be friends, but it's usually like one person develops feelings and then the
Yeah.
other's like, oh, I don't see you that way type thing. So
Yeah, I'm with your uncle on that. She knows how I feel about. I don't believe that guys and girls can be just friends, like ever. I feel like at one point, like she's saying,
yeah, someone's bound to.
Yeah, like one or the other is going to develop feelings for the other person, right? And I mean, you're you're proof of it, right? You guys
Yeah.
are just friends, and then you guys fell for each other, which is cool. But
Did you guys not tell each other? Because I would assume that's hard to be friends even though you like each other? Or you didn't develop those feelings until like closer into the year?
Well, partially because we were both dating somebody at the time initially. So we were in just relationships on her with her boyfriend and me with my girlfriend, and you know, we were just hanging out. There was no intention to take it any further. We were just
Right.
hanging out.
Right.
We were in the same classes, and we would just hang out.
yeah,
But you know, the more you hang out with somebody, obviously,
Right.
you know, you start to grow feelings for each other.
so you guys met in college. We met at church. Do you think there's a right or wrong place to meet your significant other?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean,
Obviously, there's some extremes, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say, like, well, yeah.
but like,
I
like
mean,
generally speaking, right? Like, do you think there's ideal places or the perfect place or
Well, the hard part, I mean, I know that, like within our married life family, I know there's a lot of people that met online. There's
Sure.
a lot of people that met at the club at BC.
yeah,
You know, I've heard of stories where people have met at the grocery store. Literally, you know, the whole movie.
yeah? I was gonna
Right.
say it's like straight up a movie.
Yeah. You know, they'll literally bump into each other. You know, drop the cantaloupe or the cereal. Like the guy comes in and
Yeah.
rescues the box, and here you go, man. It's all movie like.
Yeah.
And stuff like that does happen.
yeah.
You know, but for us, it was just built on friendship and communication. We were just hanging out.
Yeah.
And eventually, the Bible tells us that love covers a multitude of imperfections. Not that she was imperfect, but one of the things about her testimony is so powerful is that when she was a young lady, she was involved in a motor vehicle accident.
Oh wow.
And the vehicle that she was riding in was a van, and a drunk driver T-boned the van. And at the time, we didn't believe in seatbelts and
Sure.
whatnot. So she was, half of her body was inside the van and half of her body was on top of the vehicle that collided with them.
Wow.
And so part of her skin on her arm, with all the glass, it sheared off part of her skin.
Wow.
So they literally had to medevac her out. And the doctors were able to sew all this part back on, but it has a lot of scar tissue. So part of it for me was, like, I saw it and you're like, oh, like, wow, that's interesting. But with time and over the course of, almost 30 years that we've been together, I've learned to appreciate the scars that she has on her arms, and I love it. She doesn't have a ton of feeling on it, but, every now and then I rub my hand on it, but it reminds me of the trials and the tests that she has gone through in her life to get her to where she
Yeah.
is, and so.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, the only reason I was asking that question is because sometimes I feel like, especially in our circle, in church, everyone assumes that your perfect spouse is only found at church. But I don't think that's necessarily true always. There's a ton of great people, right?
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of not so great people. Right. I think that's the inherent part of, being in church is we attract everybody, right? From good to not so
The
good.
good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, and I think and I'm sure you have too. We do a lot of counselings, right? I'm sure
Absolutely.
you've had those conversations with individuals who it's like, oh, we met at church. Like I thought, like, I thought I was marrying a godly man, or I thought I was with a godly
Right.
woman, and
Absolutely.
so on and so forth. And
Right.
I feel like that's not always the case when you meet someone at church. I feel like sometimes there's a danger in that. We don't do what you all did or what we did, where we got to know each other and being friends or even just hanging out, and they immediately just like almost jump the gun, and it's like, okay, we can
Right.
skip all that because
They go to church.
yeah, it's almost like,
Yeah.
oh, they have the prerequisites, right?
Yeah.
Like oh they took they already took remedial math, so we're gonna throw them into calculus.
Yeah.
Like no, like you need those
Right.
foundational parts of getting to know one another. And I love that you guys, I feel like both of us have done that, right? In our relationships, is that we valued that in the sense of getting to know one another, even though, right, I knew she was a church girl and I was a church guy, obviously, but we still took that step in getting to know one another. Because again,
Right.
not every church attendee or every church goer is always the best, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Right.
I think we all come with baggage. Some of us hide it really well,
Yeah.
and that's the downside. Part of being a Christian is being genuine and authentic with God in your relationship. I think that's the most important thing, that you can be genuine in your conversations with God so that God can heal that hurt
Yeah.
and help you be redeemed and recovered in
Right.
those areas that are, that where you have baggage.
Right.
But a lot of us have a tendency to just simply hide all of that baggage and not want to deal with it. And like I said, love covers a multitude of imperfections, but we have a tendency to fear the rejection, the judgment of
Right.
what the other person may say about that particular baggage.
Right.
Every human truly fears the rejection of a heavenly Father. And so, no, I'm good. And that's the typical response for a lot of people. I'm good,
Yeah.
because they don't want somebody to go in and say, you know what, you've got baggage.
Right.
I don't know if you remember the movie, You've Got Mail. Mm-hmm. But instead of saying you got mail, you've got baggage.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of us, we don't want to open up the baggage
Sure.
and literally start pulling stuff out
Sure.
so that you can actually heal. And that's what God does through
Yeah,
his word.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree, right? And the scripture even tells us that that his grace is obviously it's sufficient for us, but that he is made perfect in our weakness.
Absolutely.
Right? So we tend to have this, I guess, desire or fear even, where we try and hide our weaknesses, and like no one can know. But I really do believe that it's not until you, like you said, right, you begin to expose those weak areas in your life that God could actually begin to heal those areas in your life, right? And really, the way I view it is like, okay, even in my weakness, I can only go so far, right? But God will always make up that difference for me,
Absolutely.
right? Even in a relationship, right?
Right.
Or, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like our relationship is perfect, right? We all
I
have
didn't think
our
ours is either. No,
Oh, like
absolutely.
definitely not.
But I
Yeah.
think one, you guys can't see, but Aaron, who's their son, is shaking his head behind the camera. But I think one thing that I love, about the God that we serve is that even in our weakness, in our moments of weakness, and in our moments of imperfection, if we are willing to put in the work and do
Right.
what's necessary, God can begin to repair that and not only fix it, but make it stronger and
Right.
better. And I think
Right.
that's one of the coolest things about allowing God into those dark areas or those secret areas of your life, or even of your heart, right? Is when you allow him in, It's like he puts the pieces back together. And I think maybe we've even prayed that prayer, heard that prayer prayed before, like he's going to put the broken pieces back together. And I think, at least for me, I think your mind can quickly go to like, oh, it's like super glue. But in my mind, I'm like, no, it's not like super glue, because super glue, I feel like you can still break it. I feel like God does an even better job of the way he puts things back together. It makes it even stronger and better than it was before the crack was there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's how I view it.
Have you ever heard of the term kintsugi?
Yes, as I was talking, I was trying to think of the word, but that's exactly it. You should please explain to our viewers what that is.
Kintsugi
If you don't know what this it's awesome.
is a Japanese term where clay pottery that is broken, they don't like to throw things away. So what they do is they will use broken pottery and they will actually fill in the cracks, glue it back together, but fill in the cracks with precious metals, gold, silver, bronze, and whatnot. And so what they do with this clay pottery, they'll actually fill in all of those cracks and seal it. And what it does is it actually exposes the cracks, but with those precious metals, it brings out the beauty of those cracks, and it makes this brand new, beautiful, literally a piece of art that whoever did that made it into an even better piece of pottery.
And that's exactly like the image that I get whenever I think of God coming into our weak areas and putting it back is exactly that, right? You get this beautiful piece, vase, whatever, right? Bowl, but with this beautiful artwork that was otherwise either thrown away, like you said, or hidden, but now it's like you're exposing it, and if anything, you're trying to show it off and like look at what I've done, or look at what God has done in me, right? And again, that I feel like that speaks to the restorative factor in having a relationship with God and allowing him to do what only he can do, right? And even it speaks to the power of our own testimony as couples, as individuals of what God has done. Not that we're trying to show off, like, look at us, like, but more so like, look what he's done in my life, right? Like, I think one of the coolest things about being a part of married life, right? I love this, and obviously you love it too, right? But I think we've talked about it, is that by default, you're exposed to couples of all ages and all different backgrounds, and individuals who've gone through different experiences, and even some who've gone through some very difficult, seasons in their lives.
Right.
And we get to hear how they overcame that, right? And they don't even, and again, it's not that they're bragging about it, but for us, because we're a relatively young married couple, we're going on 5 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. In December, 5 years, you guys can send us anniversary gifts, gift cards, whatever. No, I'm just kidding. But
Cash App, Venmo.
Yeah, Aaron will put it up in post-production. But for us, it's almost like it's almost like a time machine, and it's like you're jumping to a point, or I guess time machine, jumping to a past, right? You're seeing their history, and we're skipping the headache of how do we deal with this, or like I'm going through this issue, right? And I don't know how to deal with it, and I don't want to talk to anyone about it because I don't want people to know that I'm struggling or whatever.
Right.
But in just hearing their stories and hearing what they've overcome, it's like, oh, they've been through that too. Mm-hmm. And that's how they overcame it, right? So I think that's one of the best parts of being in married life. And shameless plug, obviously. Well, this is a married life podcast, so you should come, right? Yeah. Especially if you're married, younger married couple or older, whatever. Yeah. Being around those individuals is such added value, I feel, to any married couple, right? Absolutely. Like you cannot put a price on those conversations, on really that experience, right? Like you guys, 25 years. Yeah. Like that doesn't happen by coincidence or happenstance, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think the best way that I've heard marriage be described is like the amount of years that you've been married is equivalent to like a child, right? So we've got a 5-year-old, right? And what do 5-year-olds, do? Like they're still developing, they're
learning.
still learning. And even with you all, like a 25-year-old, I mean, if you can remember, back when you were
You're-
25,
yeah,
you're still trying to figure
that
it
was a
out.
while back.
But you're
crazy.
you're mature in a
Yeah.
sense, right? Like you're growing into a young adult. And so I think ultimately like being able to see the amount of years that people have been married and really like learning from that, but also like I don't know, like just being able to see how it's possible, to stay married, especially
Yeah.
with you all. Like 25 years is a long time.
That's huge.
That's
It's a
20
big
plus years, above where we are. And so I think even just seeing your guys' life and, the kids that you've raised and the incredible kids that you've raised, Aaron over there. No, but really, and how you both serve and how you both feel, make people feel seen and loved. And you do it together. You do it as a family. And so I think that's ultimately what we, now that we're expecting our daughter and starting a family, like all of that is so important to us,
Yeah.
Like our values. And we've talked about it before, but to see you guys live that out, it's like, hey, it's possible, right? Like we can do that.
It is. And going back to what you had said, Dave, where is the best place to meet? I'm going to say it's church, but for us, it was
EBCC.
college, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you want to be with people that, think like you.
Sure.
And for us, it just worked out, because I've been a Christian all my life. And when I met him, he wasn't. And it's just, the decision that he made, which we're blessed, But I'm going to say, yes, being in church is the best place to meet
Yeah.
somebody because, you can't be out in a bar, and expect to
Right,
find,
for him to
a
serve
godly
God and-
individual, right?
Yeah.
True.
So I'm
So-
going to say, yes, church is going to be the
Yeah.
best place to find somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can I ask you, like, because my previous relationship, I brought him to church and I feel like I was leading him and he gave his life to God and stuff. But I couldn't sustain that. Like, he was coming because of me, but I needed him to have a relationship with God. So what was that like for you, especially knowing that he wasn't a believer? Like, where did you, obviously you didn't like draw a line or anything, but how did you like navigate that situation knowing that, especially growing up Christian? Because I kind of came from the same, boat where I grew up in church and I knew, like obviously the importance of, being in a relationship with a godly man. And then I kind of took a risk with this other guy and I was like, oh my God, okay.
Not me.
Now I
Not talking
see.
about- no, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
like now I see. And, it was great. Like he started coming, but I couldn't sustain that relationship, like it had to be God in his life to sustain him to, I guess bring that growth. So
I'm going to say that it was hard at first because growing up and I came from a very religious church. And so that was a big no-no. And so I guess I would sometimes say I would hide, from those individuals. But I think ultimately, it was always the prayers. I would invite him and he would go with me.
So he was willing and open.
Yes.
Like he
Absolutely.
wasn't just
And then
like closed off.
Sometimes he would invite me to the Catholic church. And I, like deep inside, like I knew that I shouldn't go. But then I was all like, well, if I invite him and he comes to my church, like, why can't I go to his church? And I
Right.
went a couple of times with him. And the year that
Christmas
he
program.
the year that he decided the year that he decided to be to receive Christ and be born again, it was at a crusade, Luis Palau crusade, and I was telling him I hadn't thought of this, but it was so selfish of me because I invited him. I grew up in Assemblies of God Church, so Luis Palau was huge. So when he came, I invited him. And needless to say, we were sitting right in front of the individuals where I used to go to church. And so when Luis Palau said, who wants to, I think the message was, who wants to go
How to get to
how
heaven
to go-
from El Paso, Texas.
Oh, wow.
And so he said he wanted to go. And selfish me, I was thinking, oh my God, the people that are sitting right behind me, because they always thought, that I was like kind of like a rebel, And so me thinking of me, I was thinking, they're going to think, that I'm not born again. I'm thinking of me. I wasn't even thinking of his salvation. I was thinking of myself.
That's so.
And I didn't even realize that until recently that I had been thinking about it. And I'm like, wow. But I think that it's ultimately, that he decided.
Right.
Because I would invite him and he would come.
Right.
And I think that, like, obviously in us working here as staff here at the church, I think that part of it, a lot of individuals that come to church and invite others
Sure.
have that exact same feeling as like, well, I've been a church member for the longest time, or I've been coming here, et cetera, et cetera. And, when Pastor Shannon, Pastor Charles or Jared, whenever they make the invitation to receive Christ, and they say, well, why don't you ask the person next to you to see if they want to come over?
Right.
And you can ask them and just come along with them.
Right.
Just come along, and nobody will know if it's you or me. Just bring them. And I think that us as Christians, we need to step out in faith in those moments and not so much concern ourselves with what people think, but really focus on the one person who needs to receive Christ as their Savior. So on that note, want to invite you to episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 moving forward. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Would love to see you here back again as we tackle all of these topics in detail. We're going to be talking about salvation, obviously. We're going to be talking about family matters such as the one we've been talking today. How do you navigate the one believer versus a non-believer? Those are going to be some really good topics. Would love to see you at the next podcast. Make sure you tune in.